Hey guys, what's going on? Bruce here. Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be continuing with the How to See Cheat series, and this episode we're going to be talking about reach. I'm not really going to be going over misplace in this episode. That will probably be saved for a later video, talking about how to see misplace in the first person point of view, etc. However, I am going to go over reach right now, which is basically just misplace that doesn't move the opponent towards you. It's very simple. It just increases your reach or expands the opponent's hitbox towards you, depending on how you code it, and I am sure that most people who are watching this video, almost all of you guys, if you watch my channel, you know what reach is, so I don't really need to explain it much more. Anyway, so this is how to see reach. So to start off, we're going to talk about how you don't see reach, and I'm going to kind of talk about the different ways where you can see reach better or see reach worse, etc., and all the different circumstances you have to basically take into account, and all the different factors you have to take into account to determine if someone is using reach. Well, first of all, you have to understand that third-person evidence, as with knockback modifiers, third-person evidence is superior to first-person evidence. This is due to the fact that in first-person evidence, it's much more difficult to tell if someone's using a reach because of combos and ping. Now, when you get comboed, you're kind of hit up into the air, right? And it kind of looks like the opponent is out of your reach, right? So you might say, oh, well, they're using a reach because you can't hit them back. But what you're not taking into account is the Y level difference between you and your opponent. So that's the first thing. The first thing you have to, think of is the Y level difference. And because if you're, 3 blocks above your opponent, you're not going to be able to hit your opponent because of the way that ray tracing works in Minecraft. So in the past, I've talked about how ray tracing works, right? So you basically ray trace from your head, which means that, if you're above your opponent, you have a disadvantage, and if you're below your opponent, you have an advantage. And you have to keep in mind, it's not that your reach is decreasing when you go above your opponent. Your reach is actually the same in terms of raw number. It's still 3 statically, unless you change it, obviously. But in default Minecraft, your reach is 3 in survival mode. But, if you're above your opponent, your ray trace has to travel farther to intersect with your opponent's hitbox because you're ray tracing from the head. So you have to travel down your entire body. However, if you're below your opponent, then you don't need to travel down your entire body. All you have to do is go from your head up to your head, and then you're already off the body, So vertically speaking, the person who is, below the opponent, their ray trace has to travel less. So therefore they get an advantage, even though the reach is the same. Anyway, I've talked about that in a video before. You need to look at the Y level difference because for all we know, this reach that you're seeing in the first person point of view, and even maybe in the third person point of view, even though it's more obvious in the first person point of view, could just be the result of someone with a different Y level, and it's not actually reach. Now, the issue I just described is compounded by high ping. So if you have high ping, you actually get more reach. Now, this is not the same as velocity. For example, when you have high ping, your velocity is delayed. However, you don't take less velocity. But if you have high ping, you technically get more reach on the server side. Not the client side. Your client side reach is still 3. But as I've talked about in videos prior, the higher ping you have, the higher your server side reach. Because, not client side, as I said before, because if you attack someone and then move, like half a block backwards, the server is going to take 300 MS to register your attack. But in that time, you're going to be moving backwards. So therefore, the server will see your hit as a farther hit than what is actually on your client. So you'll actually get above 3 blocks of reach, and you can actually get above 3 blocks of reach normally without high ping, but you'll get much more reach with high ping than you do with low ping. So, compounding those factors in the first person point of view, it really makes it difficult to tell if someone's using reach in the first person point of view. Because if you fight someone who's just extremely laggy, and as you've seen in my videos before, that I've fought people who are extremely laggy, and it looks like they're using like 6-7 blocks of reach. It's ridiculous. But in reality, they're just lagging. They could also be cheating, which is one of the main problems that I've talked about before. But, it looks like they're just lagging. And the fact of the matter is it's basically impossible to tell, so check their ping. But, third-person point of view will eliminate a lot of that, and it will make it much easier to see if someone is cheating or not. So the next thing you're going to need to know about detecting reach or seeing reach is about movement. And, you need to really watch your opponent and your own movement to tell if someone's using reach. And this is simply because of the way your reach works, right? As I talked about before, your hit doesn't immediately arrive at the server unless you have 0 ping, right? There's always like a 1 tick, 2 ticks, 3 tick delay, depending on your ping. That would be 50 ms, 100 ms, 150 ms, etc., etc. And because of that, your movement is very important to where your opponent sees you when your hit finally registers, right? Because let me just give you an example. So let's say your opponent goes up to you, attacks you, and then backs up, right? So they're backing up when they're attacking you. You will see them farther away than they actually were because it takes time, a few milliseconds, for the server to show you their position. So your opponent attacks you because on their screen, you're in their reach, right? So on their screen, you're within 3 blocks, right? So they attack you, and they do damage. Then they send an attack packet to the server. The server sees that they're within 6 blocks because the server will actually cancel hits if they're above 6 blocks. And No Cheat Plus will actually cancel hits to a greater extent than, regular Spigot will. So, for example, on No Cheat Plus, on Hypixel, for example, you can't really get reach above 4.25 blocks. So on Hypixel, that number instead of 6 is 4.25. It's kind of irrelevant, but that's going to be part of what I'm trying to explain. So essentially, when player A attacks player B, the server, sees that player A sent an attack packet with the entity ID of player B. So, the server's like, okay, player B was attacked. Now player B is going to get damaged, right? So the thing is that during the time that it takes for the server to tell player B that they're damaged, player A could move backwards. So let's say that player A attacks player B. Player A, sends an attack packet to the server saying that they attacked player B, right? So the server needs to damage player B. However, in the time that it takes, because, as I said before, people have ping. People don't instantly connect to the server. There's a delay there. It's a few ticks, right? Depending on how much ping you have. In the time that it takes for the server to tell player B that they're attacked, player A could have moved backwards. And I'm pretty sure that this would look like reach, and it does look like reach. If you've ever seen people S-tapping and you can't hit them, that's exactly the mechanism I just described. And this effect is only compounded by high ping. So this all kind of compounds together. Like, imagine that you're on a different Y level to someone, the person has high ping, and, they're S-tapping. It's going to look like they're using reach. Now, S-tapping is not the only kind of way you can make yourself look like you're using reach. There's a bunch of different ways, but you need to take into account the position that the players are traveling in. So if you're traveling in the same direction as your opponent, like, for example, if you're chasing your opponent and you're traveling the same speed, right, and they're in your range, on their screen, you might look a little farther away if you have higher ping, because, as I said before, it's going to take time for them to see you move. Anyway, with that out of the way, it's really no surprise that it's extremely difficult to see low levels of reach. Like, if you use, lower levels of reach, in a hacked client, it's very, very difficult to tell if someone is actually cheating because of all the factors I've just described. But you can see it for kind of like higher levels. Like if you have 3.5 blocks of reach, it's very obvious. If you have 4 blocks of reach, it's extremely obvious. If you're using 6 blocks of reach, it's blatant. But the problem is that lower levels of reach are difficult to see, and it's not just us that have the problem seeing it. Anti-cheats also have problems detecting lower levels of reach because of all of the problems I just described. And because of that, it is virtually impossible to tell if someone's using lower levels of reach, which is unfortunate. But I'm going to tell you how to see higher levels of reach. Now, what is the best way of doing that? Well, first of all, you need to take into account all of the factors I previously described. So that would be, ping, Y level difference, movement, etc., etc. Then what you need to do is you need to look at the first hit that player 1 who's suspected of using reach gets on player 2, and then track their attacks over time and see if they're consistently getting above 4 blocks. Like if you're spectating them and they're consistently getting above 4 blocks of reach, and it looks like you're literally counting the blocks between the two opponents and they're getting high levels of reach, then it is virtually impossible that they're legit, right? Like that's 100% cheats. You can't really just fake that. You can if you're lagging, but if you need to take into account the ping of the opponent. If the person has low ping, they're definitely cheating. Yeah, so this is basically how you see reach, and there are a few other factors here that are kind of minor that I haven't really gone over in depth, and I think I might make a whole nother video about movement and how it affects reach. If you guys are interested in that, comment down below that you'd like to see that, because I want to know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think about this series, leave a like on this video, and, you know, just let me know what you guys want for the next episode. I'm thinking about doing either misplaced killer or aim assist for, you know, the next episode, because kind of the more blatant cheats like fly and high jump or whatever, you know, those are so blatant that I don't even need to make a video on them. But for the more subtle cheats, yeah, I do want to make videos on them. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.